everyone, and welcome. On today's show, my guest is Nicole Majik. She's an empowerment alchemist with a diverse background in biology, chemistry, metaphysics, and finance. She helps people transform limiting beliefs. She had a fascinating near-death experience wherein she made a quantum jump, and she is here to share about this and more with us today. So welcome, Nicole.
Thank you so much for having me, Christine. This is great to be here.
Yeah, I'm so excited to hear your story because it has a lot of different qualities than what we typically hear about in a near-death experience. So I'm going to turn it over to you, have you pick up wherever you feel is relevant.
All right. Well, it's always exciting to talk about this because I get to relive it every time. And really, I was coming home from work. That's when I worked in chemistry still. And it was Friday. It was March 3rd in the year 2006. And that was actually 2 days before my second son's birthday. So I was on my way home from work. I got out of work an hour later than I usually do. I traveled the Mass Pike every single day. That's the Massachusetts Turnpike. And that road is so congested the entire way. So leaving work an hour later than normal was kind of like, ugh, so nasty every time because it would take an hour and a half at least to get home. So I'm stuck in the traffic and really sitting there and moving maybe about 30 miles an hour. And I'm seeing up ahead of me that there's a couple cars in the ditch over on the right. So a lot of people were basically rubbernecking and looking at things. And I know that's when accidents happen. So I see what's happening. I pay attention to the road. And at the same time, all of a sudden, everything just started to slow down. And my attention was diverted to the other side of the highway because I was in the high-speed lane and there was a Jersey barrier. So on the other side of that Jersey barrier was another car. And it just felt like my head was turned very quickly and sharply to this woman who, like I said, time just slowed down to almost a frame by frame slow motion. And I could see this woman just kind of swaying from some impact, her black curly hair in front of her face. So I couldn't see her face, but I could see all these individual hairs and the light shining off of individual hairs, noticing that her car door, her driver's side door was smashed in. I had a whole conversation in my head thinking, how is that even possible? She's in the high-speed lane on her side. How did she get hit on the passenger's side? What happened? Where's the other car? And when I asked that question about where is the other car, it was like something then picked my chin up and said, look over there. And as I looked up, I saw the other car was about to land in my lap. So I saw the man that was driving that car and his face was all contorted and screaming, and our eyes kind of met for a fleeting moment. At which point I saw what was going to happen or what was happening. And his car was, the vision that I had was his car lands in my lap, right where my steering wheel is. His car flips over and crunches down hood to hood on my car, or roof to roof, however you put it, and crunches in that roof of my car, pushes down on my neck, snaps my neck, and I saw myself die. And then everything kind of went into this space of, again, still super slow motion. And I saw my children, I saw very close family, and it was like I had a conversation with each individual person. And then when that was done, it was kind of like for my kids, I would have a conversation with them, I'd hug them, and then we'd part. And when that was done for each one, I said, okay, I'm ready. And when I said, okay, I'm ready, this amazing peace just came over, like peace, calm, serene, and surreal at the same time. And everything went black. And when everything went black, everything sped up. And it felt like I was a pinball in a pinball machine and somebody shot me through the tunnel. And I was flying through this tunnel space. And then all of a sudden, what I remembered after that, you see lights and whatnot, and it just, there's more of a presence, a feeling. For me, at least, it was this presence, this feeling, and just knowing things. And then when I came through like, I have to demonstrate. So I was holding my steering wheel, and I came through like as if I like if somebody holds your head underwater and you can't breathe, and it's that last point of I either take a breath or I die. And I came through and I just went like holding the steering wheel like this, and just this gasping breath at one point where I was just so discombobulated, and I looked in my rearview mirror, and it was like I was back where the accident took place. And just everything sped up and caught up in time, but I wasn't in that same space. And I'm looking in my rearview mirror and I'm looking around, and there are no cars on the road, none. So a major highway during rush hour traffic, not a single car, not one in front of me, not one behind me, not a car on the other side at all. And when I came through, and after my gasping breath, I said, oh my God, I almost just died. And then I said, oh my God, I should have been dead. And then I stopped for a moment and thought, looking at, there's no cars on the road. And I go, oh my God, am I dead? And then I see this one lone car coming on the opposite side of the highway. And I maybe comically thought to myself, oh my God, which side of the highway am I on? Am I on the highway to heaven or hell right now? Because I don't even know what's happening. And then what do you do when you don't know what to do? You call mom, right? So I remember calling my mother, and in that moment, she answered the phone and she sounded like this. Oh my God, Nikki, are you okay? I was just praying for you. I usually pray for you in the morning because I pray for everybody for protection and this and that and the other thing. But I just had this feeling that I needed to pray for you right there in the moment. Are you okay? And I was like, Mom, can you just shut up for a minute? And she's like, what's going on? And I said, am I dead? And then I hear this pause. And then, what? No, you're not dead. You're talking to me on the phone. What are you talking about right now? What's going on? And she's going a mile a minute. And then I explained to her what happened. And she goes, oh my gosh, you just rode angel wings. And I was like, well, I rode something, angel wings, a wormhole, whatever it is that you want to call it. Something happened and I can't explain it. And I don't even know how to feel right now because I was feeling so much, right? And right here, I should stop for a moment and kind of rewind, because in that moment, when I came through that space, there was this overwhelming sense of like fervor for life, love in general. This love vibration was just vibrating through my body. If we back up to before the accident, I was obsessed with death. I wanted to die. I was super depressed after I had my third child. I didn't realize that I was in postpartum depression, and then it just went downhill from there. I wanted out any which way that I could, but the only thing that was holding me on were my kids. So I had this mantra of, well, just hold on, just a little bit longer, just a little bit longer, just a little. And I would tell myself this all day long. It was like this on repeat in my brain, because I would have an entire fantasy about any possible way that I could die and how I could make that happen. And I would fantasize through it. And then I would tell myself, just hold on a little bit longer. The kids need you. Just hold on a little bit longer. And when this happened, it was like it erased everything, all of that stuff, how I felt. And I remembered calling my husband at the time, now my ex, but he was like, oh, you're exaggerating, you're making it up and all this stuff. And anybody that knows me is, I try to be as precise and accurate as possible. I mean, I was a chemist, an analytical chemist, so precision and accuracy and being very explicit is part of the job and part of the personality. So I was just like, oh my God, forget it. You don't understand, and that's okay. So there also was this understanding instead of being put off. And when I went to the house and came in, and my son met me at the door, I just grabbed him. This was the one that had the birthday in 2 days. And I just grabbed him, and I just remembered like this love that was pouring through me and out of me at that point in time. And I was like, I love you so much. I love you so much. I love you so much. And it was just like flooding. It still surges, so that love comes through, and it's so healing. And when I grabbed my son, it was like everything everything wiped away, right? And everything changed. So the near death experience itself, geez, the near death experience itself is really exciting to hear and to reflect back on. But it was everything that happened after that. The visions. I grew up a very intuitive child, seeing energy, seeing auras, knowing, seeing spirits, hearing them, and all of that stuff, just knowing things. And it wasn't accepted in my household because of the religious element in my household. So that stuff was bad and taboo and, of the devil kind of stuff. And I never understood that because, my parents were very intuitive people. My whole family is very intuitive. And why was it okay for them, but not for me? And all this stuff was amplified. And from that point forward, it's just been this amazing journey of unfolding so much stuff and tapping into the other side and constantly having these major visions, major quantum shifts. Oh, I must say, where I came back to through the tunnel, there was a bridge that was there, so I was able to see which bridge it was. So, and I knew where the accident happened. The accident itself was 2.5 miles away from where I ended up. Because on another ride home from work, I was curious and said, how far away was that? And a weird element of it is that a year later, one of my friends had been sitting around with a new job, people that she worked with in a new job that she got. And the friends were talking about the accident that happened the year before. And she called me up that night saying, Nicole, I think I just heard about the accident that you had talked about before. And she told me everything that they said, which describes the accident. And they said that some guy hit a woman on one side, the other side of the highway, went up over the Jersey barrier, landed on another woman's car, and they both died. And that in itself, I was like, whoa, because I tried to find something like a news clip, news article, or whatever on that. And for some reason, I could never find it. And there were weird things that would happen afterwards where my kids would talk about things and say, "Hey mom, remember this?" And I didn't remember it at all, or I didn't remember it like they did. I had completely different memories of something. Um, Things weren't all exactly the same, or physical objects were there or not there that should have been there or shouldn't be there. And it was just a weird thing with this quantum jump that I did, because not only was it this going through a spatial element, it felt very much dimensional, because I like the first thing was, why am I in bumper to bumper traffic the entire way home when I come home at this time? And this is exactly how it was. And then all of a sudden, zero cars on the highway. It doesn't make sense. So that's pretty much the gist of the near death experience.
Wow, that is so incredible. Thank you so much for sharing that. I do have some questions, but first, my biggest question is, what exactly do you understand of that experience? What was that took place?
Okay, so there's a little bit of a process of coming to terms, or at least how I see it today versus what happened then. I didn't know anything what to think about it when it happened. I felt very different. I felt weird in my own body. Um, I looked at things. I felt very differently than what I did before. Obviously, I really loved life, and I wanted to live life and experience life. And so all this stuff happened, and I felt like I was changing everything about me. I ended up having these episodes of major visions. So I was journaling constantly with these huge visions that even to this day are still playing out. Some of them would happen right away. Some of them didn't happen until 10 years later, all that stuff. I I just knew things. So things would happen, stuff would come out of my mouth, or I'd go up to people and say, "Oh, is this hurting you? And do you mind if I touch you?" kind of thing. And then all of a sudden, this massive stream of energy would transform that person. So I got into a lot of, like, deeper into energy healing and that kind of stuff. I ended up being at a retreat that was about the Merkaba meditation, and the instructor had brought something, and she had said, "Oh, this video kind of jumped into my bag, so I didn't know if you guys might want to watch it, so I just brought it along." So we all agreed, let's watch it. And Drunvalo Melchizedek was talking about his nephew and his nephew's walk-in experience. So watching that, it had a lot of similarities, and I was thinking to myself, "Oh my gosh, this sounds like what happened to me." So I kind of freaked out a little bit in a way, because I didn't know how to take that. Am I myself? Am I somebody else? Or what is going on? What about my kids? So there's a lot of these existential questions that you're asking. Um, but then I kind of came to terms with that. And there was something that just always felt missing.
Mm.
And I never fully accepted that, even though I talked about it as that, because it was the best description I had. And then a handful of years ago, so not too long ago, my boyfriend actually had said, "Have you ever seen that movie Interstellar?" Because actually, it was when the Thor movie first came out, so it's not that far away. It's like, what, maybe a year or two ago. And I said, "Oh," she was talking about, the whole space time and, quantum jumping and all that stuff. And the joke in there was that she said, "Oh, if you watch these two movies, it explains it quite simply. And he's laughing, and I'm just listening because I don't get the joke. Um, and then he's like, "Have you ever seen this movie?" And I said, "No." He goes, "I'm surprised because it's right up your alley." We watched the movie right then and there. And um, at the end of the movie, I sat up and I was like this, my mind was just expanded and blown out because I actually blurted out, I'm like, "Oh my God, it explains it so clearly. And it is so simple." And he laughs because he thinks I'm making a joke. And then he's looking at me just like my behavior and my expressions and what I'm doing and saying. And he goes, "Oh my God, are you serious right now?" I'm like, "I am absolutely 100% serious. Everything makes sense now." Like it was like the cogs clicked, all the keys unlocked, everything switched open and all this stuff. And I understood so much at that point that I walked around probably for 3 days asking questions and understanding the answers of them. Or people would ask me something and I was like, "Oh yeah, that's so super easy," and blah blah blah, and I would just go off on things and how it was a quantum jump into another dimension. I actually saw myself die in that other dimension, and then my consciousness gets projected into this other dimension to just go and finish up what I need to finish up.
Mm-hmm. And you had referred to that black tunnel as a wormhole. Is that what you believe it to be?
That's what a dimensional, yeah, I'd say like a wormhole.
Mm-hmm.
That's what it felt like from that very first day, and feels right to say.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it sounds like you experienced so much in those moments that I'm sure in reality were a moment or two, but it sounds like you did and experienced so much, from saying goodbye to your family members to seeing all of this unfold, which speaks to the idea of, time and space are completely different on the other side. How long did that feel when you were going through all of that?
It was so funny because I was having these whole conversations, and at one point in that conversation in my head, I was like, "How am I even having all these thoughts?" And this, it had to have been realistically in this reality. Um, it probably was a matter of a couple of seconds,
Mm.
maybe like a handful of seconds tops, like 3 seconds, I don't know. But it felt like 15 minutes.
Oh, wow. And when you were having conversations with your loved ones, was that a goodbye that you were doing with them?
Yeah, it was.
Wow.
It
Which
was.
I'm sure made your hello even more powerful when you got home and hugged your kids.
Yeah.
Wow, that's incredible. How has this idea of quantum jumping and shifting changed how you live your life today?
Ooh, it changed everything because number one, I'm here and don't have to tell myself just hang on a little bit longer for the entire time that I'm awake. And it was it was this shifting into, I love my life. I love everything about it. The good, the challenging, all of the things. I'm in gratitude even for adversities that I face. I almost died from mercury poisoning. I went through this excruciating, handful of years in my life. And I wouldn't change anything because it's all this knowledge and understanding. And I really feel that everything that I have been through and experienced through and came out on the other side, I have such a connection with so many different types of people and so many different things that people go through, that I'm able to help guide them and, be that person who can say, okay, I'm like the wormhole for them to just bypass all this stuff and get to that other side like this, instead of having to go through years and years and years and maybe not even get there where they want to be. So it's really impacted my life to be able to impact others in a positive way and really find who they are, be authentic, love their life, and not have to hide who they are, and be able to create whatever it is that you want.
Love it. Has this changed your spiritual or religious perspectives? If you have any, has that experience changed it for you?
um, yes, and I'd say I grew up in a very Catholic and Christian and sometimes radically Christian household where I think it solidified things that I kind of felt inside but couldn't talk about, and then it expanded all of that to really have this understanding of how all religions are the same, and it's like an aspect of it's like an aspect of the totality of it. It's because it's so ineffable. We have no words to describe what's on that other side. There are different ways in which to express that. And, when you say, I am happy and I am full of joy and I am content and I am pleased, they're all these positive feelings, but they mean something slightly different. And if we take those for what they are, somebody could say these things and interpret them a certain way, and that's exactly what we do with religions. Is it's trying to explain something that cannot fully be explained in a certain way, and you go with what makes sense for you.
Mhm. So, what is your understanding of God? I like to ask my guests that question. I mean, maybe you don't use that word, but what is your understanding of it?
I don't mind using the word God. I tend to use universe just because it feels more expansive in the way of how God is the universe, so like everything, all that is, and we are part of that. So we have this dichotomy about us in a 3D realm. So there's always an equal and opposite, and God is the all of it. So everything is encompassing. And just like how we kind of have these conflicts within us. And if we could just accept all of it, and then also accept that we are also God, and God is us, and we're particles or parts of, or however you want to look at it, everything is everything.
Mm-hmm.
We have this individualization because we have a dichotomy. So you and I are separate as individuals, human beings, like the meat suit, as people say.
Mm-hmm.
But energetically, we are one and the same.
Mm-hmm.
And if you start to see and accept that we are all one, this, 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 all of it is invisible. It doesn't matter and it doesn't really exist.
Mm-hmm.
So God is everything and everything is God. So all that is just what is. It's just going to be what it is. So that's really what the I am that I am.
Mm-hmm.
It just is. So a
Mm-hmm.
lot of times I'll just say, oh, it just is, because it's everything.
Mm-hmm. Love that explanation. There's this idea that every decision we make, um, there's an opposite decision that could have been made, and there is a version of us that takes that route, right? And so we could even look at your accident and think there was a version of you that got into that accident and died, right? Do you think every time we make a decision, like all day long, we're making these little quantum jumps in our reality?
Yes. In a way, yes. I think that we have these tracks. I feel like how to describe it. it's so hard to say it because we don't have the vocabulary or the ability to understand fully. But if you think about a picture that's a fractal,
Mhm,
it's like that.
mhm. So, I know you work with clients, and it sounds like you're very successful at what you do in helping to create the change that they want. But is there any tips or tricks that you could give the listeners on how we can make our own quantum jump into the reality that we desire? Like some easy things we can do to start doing that?
Oh, absolutely. The first thing that I would say is really start to gain as much awareness about yourself as possible. And whether you are religious, spiritual, or not, it comes down to, the passage, know thyself.
Mm,
This has huge gold value where the more you know yourself, the more you understand others. And the
mm,
more that you see that we are all one. So if you know yourself and you get real with yourself and just be authentic, you can start to see that we really don't have a lot of differences,
mm,
if any. Like the
mhm,
differences are what we assign. We are all the same substance. And living in a space where we are maybe just looking at things from a different perspective, right? Because opposites are the exact same, they're just a different degree. So it all depends on what angle you're looking from. So if we can start to really look at who we are and why we do the things that we do, pay attention to your thoughts and your feelings, it all comes down to your beliefs. Your beliefs are what your perception of your reality is, and that's what's going to play out. So I talk a lot about um, that kind of stuff with my clients because when we see these things play out, if there's something in your life that doesn't feel aligned, or, think about if you don't like something in your life, what does that look like? And why is it even there?
mhm,
Because there are three things that every single person needs to feel fulfilled and live a life that's fulfilled. And that is safety and security um, on all levels. So that means on a personal level, financial level, love level, all of the things. Safety and security is one. And the second one is to be empowered. And the third one is to be accepted. So love and acceptance, safety and security, and to be empowered. So if you don't feel empowered, you're going to try to control everything. So if there's something in your life that you're trying to control, you're trying to make it happen,
mhm,
take a look at that and why you don't feel empowered. Because when you're empowered, you lift everybody else up. It's okay to be in that space of including other people. You're not afraid that somebody else is going to take over. If you feel loved and connected, um, that is going to open yourself up to be who you are and be vulnerable. If you don't feel love and connected and accepted, then you close yourself off and you isolate yourself and you feel like you don't belong. Um, and then if you don't feel safe and secure, then forget it. You'll wall yourself up. You don't trust anybody, and you stay in this space of constant fear.
mhm,
So if you really look at what are the things that you don't like in your life, because a lot of times people have a hard time determining what they do want.
mhm,
Some of my clients come in and we look at, I call it defining your desire. You have to know what you want in order to make it happen in your life.
mhm,
And if you're not sure what you want, sometimes it's a little bit easier to say, okay, well, what is it that you don't like in your life now?
mhm,
And how do you turn that around to say, okay, if I don't like this, how do I get something else? Well, what does the opposite of this look like? Or what does something different to this look like?
mhm.
And then go from there.
Beautiful. And I almost forgot, but this is really important because for the viewers, this interview was supposed to happen, I believe, about a week and a half ago. and fate had it to where we needed to be here today. But that is because, well, probably for many reasons, but one in particular, you had a bit of a spiritual experience. Would you like to share that with the viewers?
Sure, absolutely. So this will be the first time that I'm sharing this publicly. um, I had a surgery done, and it came up a little bit sudden, but it wasn't an emergency surgery, so it was scheduled. But it was kind of scheduled basically, within 2 weeks of
Mhm.
a gallbladder attack happened. So I went in for gallbladder surgery, and about the a week before I went in for the surgery, I kind of had this feeling that I have a choice. I'm going to be given the choice to stay or come back. And it was very interesting because I couldn't tell anybody about that. And here's where, like, pay attention to this, because this is very, very important. Is I couldn't tell anybody about it because if those words were to leave my lips, I now am bringing co-creators into my reality, because our thoughts are energy, our words are energy. And if I said to somebody, there's a chance I might not come back, what's going to happen is I'm going to trigger potentially their fears, their emotions. They might tell somebody else. It ripple effects out. So now I don't have as much energetic pull in what I decide,
Mhm.
because there's other energies with this, right? So about a week before, I had this understanding that this was going to happen, and I felt okay with it. I knew that I couldn't talk about it energetically. And there were some things that I went through of, the morning that I left, do I hug my daughter who was home a little bit longer or not? And it was, nope, you just do what's normal. So it was, my hug, my kiss, I'll see ya. Everything is all set for her. And when I went in, it was more of just being in that space of, okay, I'm ready. There's those words again. Okay, I'm ready. And when I got wheeled in, I just remembered I was being wheeled in backwards, and I was looking above the door, and that's where the clock was, and it was 9:51 turning 9:52. And they said, "Oh, we have to just, like, fix the table a little bit to, align the robot arms." So as I sat there, and it felt again like, okay, there was a weird sense of time where I was thinking, um, okay, I got to come back. So I guess I had made the decision. So I just had this feeling through my body, like I've got to come back. And then I went into this trance mode, and I was thinking of my friend Sandy, and it was like I was talking to her, and I said, remember these words. I have to come back, and I have a lot of work left to do here. And then they were like, okay, Nicole. And they're now, like, I'm coming back into, like, wherever, and being brought onto the surgical table. And then we did the thing, and I went out. And as soon as I went out, I was out of my body. And I felt like I just went down the line of visiting certain people that I'm very close to and very connected with on a spiritual level in my life. And I felt that. And then after I was done with that, I was kind of up with, I'm just going to say, my guides. I was up with my guiding entities or whatever. And I remember this huge download, and it felt like a lot of like golden, yellow, white light that was just like pouring into me. I had all these different understandings, and it was almost like if somebody's cramming a whole bunch of information into you and you're trying to grasp at stuff to hold on to, and you just remember these little glimmers. Or if somebody like does a flip book and flashes a bunch of pictures, and you remember you saw them all and you kind of understood what was in there, but there's a few that stood out that you remember, right? That's how I felt when I was coming after I came back. When I was coming back, I just remembered it was really hard to settle into my body. And in that, I would come in and I'd kind of wake up to the nurse saying, Nicole, I need you to take a deep breath right now. And then I very weakly would take a breath in and think to myself, oh yeah, I wasn't breathing. And then I'd let the breath out, and then I was back out again. And then I'd come back to the nurse telling me, Nicole, I need you to take a deep breath right now. And this happened what felt like 5 or 7 times. And then I finally started settling in and was trying to keep myself awake. And, because it seemed like every time I closed my eyes, I just went back out. So then I'd have to come back in, and there was just a lot going on. They ended up telling me that they held me a lot longer than anyone else. People that were close to me were kind of wondering what is actually going on, and they were calling my aunt who had brought me to find out if, or calling my phone, and my aunt was answering the phone and asking what is going on, because they had told me I was going to be there for 3 or 4 hours, and I didn't get home until maybe 8 hours later.
Wow.
And then when I got home, and after called the people that I needed to call, and then I had called Sandy, and she said, hey, I don't know what you were doing at somewhere between 10 and 10 past 10. And then she said, actually, it was 10:08. And she said, I felt you in my car. And I just kind of looked over at you and said, hello, Nicole. And felt like we had this whole conversation about you were trying to decide if you were going to stay or go.
Wow.
Or come back, stay out there or come back. And she said, I just kind of got like, what the heck? And said, you get back there, you need to come back. And you have a lot of unfinished business to do here. We're not done yet. You get back there. And I just remembered I was so messed up, and I was like trying to put everything together and trying to tell her things. And I was like, I'm just going to have to talk to her when I'm fully with it, because I'm like, no, I told you that, and I told her that before I even got on the table, so that she could tell me that when I went to go visit her, so that I would be, it was that assertive force of, no, you need to get back here. So that was kind of a really interesting thing, because I was sitting there on the phone saying, I can't believe that you're effing saying these words to me, the exact words right now. So that was that.
Wow. So you kind of telepathically communicated that to her, and then she fed it back to you, and her memory was that she was telling you that.
Yes.
Do you think that whole experience was like a choice point where you could have, if you wanted to, crossed over, and you could have equally stayed?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Either way. And I was okay with either one of those things.
Mm-hmm.
It was definitely I've never had one of those like so profoundly like that, like a shared I've had a lot of telepathic things and things like that, but with like the near death type of
Mhm.
aspect, that shared experiences, it was very cool.
That is amazing. Well, clearly you have a lot more work to do here.
Really?
So perfect segue to just tell our viewers a little bit about what you do and where they can find you.
Sure thing. I help people really identify what it is that they do want and get exactly that by erasing the limiting beliefs that are standing in the way, in a very easy process that I designed through all of the personal work that I've done and the experience that I have, and also that, divine connection there. And you can find me at, if you look me up on any of the social medias, it's either Magic LLC or Nicole Majik. So my name and spelled, just like my last name. And you can find my website at NicoleMagic.com is where my marketplace is, and MagicLLC.com is where all the rest of the stuff is.
Perfect. And I will link all of your information below. So I just want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for this conversation, divinely timed. And before we wrap it up, I'd like to ask you to leave the viewers with one positive or uplifting message.
Ah, what I would love to leave you with is that you are the master of your life. No matter what is happening to you right now, if you feel like it's happening to you, flip that switch. That if you can accept and step into having that responsibility of being the creator, because a lot of times people think that they're lesser than or they're not good enough, but you are good enough. You are so good that you are creating exactly what you are thinking and feeling inside. So if you switch that around just a little bit to, I get to create this, and what is it that I would want next, and focus on all of the wonderful things that that brings, and find that within you, even if it's just the smallest thing. Share your win. If it's waking up, yes, I'm here. If it's getting out of bed and brushing your teeth, yes. If it's something huge, you're solidifying a high ticket client and you just solidified a $20,000 deal or a $5,000 deal or a $1,000 deal or anything, yes, you do that. And if you keep celebrating even the small wins, they'll keep getting bigger and bigger and bigger. And you'll see it happen in your life forever.
Thank you so much for that message. And thank you for being my guest. I really enjoyed our conversation, and I wish you nothing but continued success and happiness. Thank you,
And
Nicole.
as well, thank you so much for having me.
Thank
And all
you.
of you listeners. Mwah.